I'd like to start with asking you, what's the difference in sound between your new album, The Future Embrace, and the sound of Smashing Pumpkins, which everyone knows you from?
Well, when you generally say the sound of the Smashing Pumpkins, people think rock. But the Smashing Pumpkins actually did a lot of electronic type recording and acoustic recording. So I actually think this is probably a blend of the electronic and the rock side of my past work. That being said, I think it's actually kind of a new version of it. I have never heard an album that sounds the way that my album sounds. At times it sounds reminiscent of things from the 80s, but it's really just sort of a touchstone. There's a lot of production elements that I've never heard, so that's the way it sounds.
So could you describe the sounds? What kind of instruments did you work with?
No. It's kind of hard. If I told you what my album... If I told you the elements that my album was made of, the sound you would get in your head isn't the way that my album sounds. And if I describe the way my album sounds, it's so esoteric I don't know what anyone could compare it to. It's kind of out of tune. It's a mixture of Eastern and Western music. It employs technology, but in a way that's very human, and yet it excludes most human interaction musically. So if that's an album that would interest you, you might want to buy it, but I really don't know how to describe it.
Your work is very, consistently with very drum-based. I find it also with Smashing Pumpkins. Why is it so important to keep that beat so pronounced?
Well, most musicians believe that the core tempo of any song is 120, which is the rate of the human heart. So we understand from a very early age that there is some sort of rhythm in the universe. Even Pink Floyd emulated it on Dark Side of the Moon, the idea that the kick drum is a human heart. So for me, rhythm is everywhere. And rhythm is also the most subversive thing in terms of music. You can be political about a chord or a production sound, but beats go right into the body. You can't resist the beat.
How do you go about when you create your music?
I write my music in really strange ways. Traditionally, I get up early in the morning and I write first thing when I wake up, maybe for 30 minutes or 45 minutes. But after that, composition becomes sort of a deconstructionist act, by which I try to avoid everything I'm good at and force myself into really uncomfortable territories so that I can come up with new types of things. So it's a bit of the familiar and always a bit of the new.
Do you work? Do you work as a constructionist? Do you construct it piece by piece, or yeah?
I think what's interesting about the way that I work is I basically build it up and then tear it back down, and then rebuild it and then tear it back down. So I'm constantly working against myself, which is kind of maddening and is not very good for the self-esteem, but I think it yields good results, and so I'm willing to punish myself, if only for making better music.
Do you let anyone else in while you're doing this?
In terms of making the album?
In terms of the creation process?
In terms of the process of creating, no, I usually don't let anybody else in. Because I think that I'm basically looking at things from an intuitive point of view. And in terms of my own intuition, I don't want anyone interfering with that, because I trust that voice higher than I trust any human voice.
But still you go back and then question yourself and the choices that you made, deconstructing, rebuilding.
Well, I'm human.
Why?
I'm a human being, I'm a human being. It's just because your intuition guides you doesn't mean you're always comfortable with where it guides you. In the early days of my band, the Smashing Pumpkins, there were a lot of decisions that I felt were intuitively correct, but intellectually I felt were kind of offensive. But I trusted my intuition to take me where the band needed to go, and that turned out to be true. But intellectually, I wouldn't have sort of dreamed up the Smashing Pumpkins as a band. It was very intuitive, for sure.
You're currently publishing your autobiography of sorts on the net. Why are you doing that?
I chose to write my life story on the internet for free because I felt that I didn't want any restriction. I didn't want anyone editing me. I didn't want anyone telling me that something I thought was important wasn't important, because I think life is a series of really mundane details with occasional explosions of actual significance. And I think in order to tell the story as I perceive it and I've experienced it, I need to go into the level of detail that I want to go into. So I might talk, for example, for 2 pages about guitar pedals, because this was very critical to a particular period or album, and then turn around and talk about some horrible thing that happened to me that almost took my life. So there's kind of a weird contrast there between the highs and lows of my life.
Yeah, it is very exposing, not only of yourself, but also of family members and former band members. Have you gotten any reactions from their parts? What are they like?
Yeah. Does it matter?
Well,
I mean, I'm curious as to why you're asking.
well, I'm trying to find out whether have you had that in mind before you wrote it, like hold nothing back, or are you trying to gain something by doing this, by putting them out at the same time as you put yourself out there?
But when you say gain something, what does that mean? I'm just trying to understand so I answer your question.
Yeah. Do you have like, what's your personal gain? Your personal gain is you put yourself out there, but do you also gain something from putting your friends and family members, and is it like therapy or?
The difficulty in telling your life story is you have to talk about the people that you lived your life with. And of course their perceptions of what happened are going to differ. That's what makes us unique. But there's no way for me to tell the true life of my story without telling the true life of the people in my life. So this is difficult because I know that some of the things I'm going to say are going to upset people. But I think it is more important for me to tell the truth about what happened than whether or not someone's feelings are hurt. My ultimate goal is selfish. I want to change the energy around me in a way that frees me and releases me from the shame of the mistakes I've made in the past, so I stop carrying around some sort of cross that involves loyalty, abuse, power, and shame. I just have no interest in it anymore.
I also have some kind of feeling when I read your posts that you're on some, or at least were on some kind of quest for something.
The Holy Grail.
Well, what is your Holy Grail, do you think?
If each person has a sort of Holy Grail that they're seeking in their life, I would say mine is self-respect and ultimately peace. What makes my quest different than, say, another person's is that I refuse to compromise my value system in doing so. Where another person may say make music that's easier to listen to, because obviously God gave me musical talent, so I know how to make music that sort of makes people feel comfortable. So it's very strange to try to get these goals met, but at the same time be so contentious and so against the grain of normal society. It's kind of like I really want these beautiful things, but I'm only going to have them this one certain way, and if I don't get them that one certain way, I don't want them at all.
You tell a story about when you went to Istanbul, and you say that you don't know why you went there, but you find a meaning when you hear the prayer singers.
Mm-hmm.
Do you believe that this was sort of your faith, or do you believe that it's your own mind's way of creating meaning and structure?
I believe in fate, absolutely. I think that my life is fated, and I think everyone that you come into contact with, their life is fated with you. I believe that there's a grand master plan at work, and that we're all sort of part of that. Although I don't believe we're just pieces on a chessboard, I do believe that we have some say in how this all goes down. It's sort of an interactive matrix-like holographic experiment, and we're all sort of playing our roles. And in this particular incarnation, I'm playing the role of, strange, unsettled rock star who's going to save the world, but in this one sort of very specific way. So,
do you think that you're a religious person?
I know that I'm a religious person. I have no doubt about that.
In what way?
Well, my basic religious philosophy is that I believe in the infinite power of God, in the sense that everything, you, me, the chair, is God. So if you believe in that, it's pretty simple. You don't have to look very far. So if somebody's punching you in the face, you can sort of say, what is God trying to tell me right about now?
I'm quite hung up with this autobiography of yours.
Yeah?
I was captured by it, really. But the thing that I was thinking about very much, and it came back to me on and on, was you described the happiest days of your childhood or of your life was when you were living with your great-grandmother.
Right.
And you describe it as being very structuralized, eating the same food every day, and you also deciding on that structure.
Mm-hmm.
Is that the routines? Is that something that you try to regain? Do you think?
Yeah. What's interesting about my life is that, I have money, I have total freedom. I'm my own boss. I can do whatever I want to do, yet I lead a very structured life. I do the same things every day. I like to work the same way every day. I like to eat the same foods every day. I don't know why that is. That's a part of me I don't understand. So if anyone watching this program would like to write in their suggestions or visit my website, I would be open to suggestions. It's kind of like a Bergman film that won't end.
Back to the album. What's your
That's
favorite?
the American.
Yeah.
Sorry.
No, don't worry.
Having my own little party over here.
Okay. About your album, do you have a favorite song?
I'm really partial to the song "I'm Ready," which is sort of an interesting song in the album because it's probably the happiest song in the album. Yet it's really about a sad sort of subject, which is I'm ready because I haven't found anybody, and I'm 38 years old, and isn't this pathetic? But I love the song because it's a nice breath of fresh air in amongst the gloom and doom that is the embrace.
Is that the most structured song?
No, not at all. Not even close.
Do you think maybe that you live out the unstructural parts of you in your songs, not regarding the beats?
Right. No, I understand what you're saying. It's interesting. I don't know. Why does a dog wag its tail? It just does because it's happy. So I don't know. Maybe the things that you're asking me are just my tail wagging moments. I work because I'm happy.
But you still seem like a person that thinks a lot about what you're doing, how you're doing it, analyzing.
Not as much as you would think.
How much
it appears that way because it appears that way from the outside looking at me because my intuition is so strong it actually does ultimately order into some sort of ordered chaos. But in the process of living, my intuitive, musical and spiritual and artistic life is not structured at all. It's like riding a wild horse. And I think my work shows that. It's all over the place. It's really all over the place.
And it's an enjoyable ride, riding that horse?
As we say in my family, it's always an adventure to be me, because I never know where I'm going next, but I wouldn't say it's enjoyable.
What about your drive and ambition? You've always had it from early age. Mm-hmm. Where do you think that's coming from?
Well, if I was a Jungian analyst and I was analyzing me, I would say that I'm fixated on the idea that if I do enough, accomplish enough, that I will get whatever it is I'm seeking, which in this particular incarnation is maternal love, which of course asking the American public and then consequently the world public for maternal love is like really asking, a cat to care about you or something. You're asking for the wrong thing.
What about paternal love?
I don't seem to be that concerned with paternal love. Doesn't seem to be a big issue. There's a lot of men that I know, especially a lot of men who drink, paternal love seems to be a big issue, but somehow I skip that.
And still in your autobiography parts, you speak of how your stepmother and your father did not see you, but only your brother.
Right.
And you wanted to be seen, but at the same time you wanted to hide. How was that? It must have been very weird for a 7-8-year-old kid.
No, actually it was 5.
5-year-old, okay.
It was a nightmare. It was a total nightmare.
Does it work for you now to talk about it on the web? Does it work for you to gain some momentum on that issue, or and how?
I think it's still too early to tell whether me writing my autobiography online is a good idea. The wounds are very open, and I don't know if this is going to open them up wider or actually help heal them. My sense is that it's going to help heal them, but it's going to get worse before it gets better.
Thank you for being so open.
Sure.
And I think
I'm just a leaf in the wind.
Aren't we all?